Port alongside Robbie Weinstein from 24/7 Sports covers Vanderbilt, of course, all over the place online, all over the place on Twitter. He's the man to look for in Vanderbilt sports. And Robbie, we've first off, thanks for joining. We started the hashtag Thanks Robbie. We're
Yep.
trying to get it. Trying to get it trending, but I feel like you're that guy. You're the guy with the scoop, and whenever there's kind of a dull day, I feel like you come out with something that Vanderbilt fans start either to get excited about or upset about. So
Thanks. I wouldn't mind some dull days, but it does seem like when you're least expecting it, that's always when the news happens, or especially when I'm away from my computer or whatever. But yeah, a little bit of a light week here as we wait for regionals to start, and then from there we'll see whether it ends quickly or whether they keep playing. I don't really know.
Robbie, let's start there. It's all baseball right now for Vanderbilt fans, and it's been an interesting year. And you've obviously kind of been with the team all throughout this season. Of course, you've had some other duties with 24/7, but you've been as close as anybody with this team. From what you've seen, Robbie, over the years watching Vanderbilt baseball and comparing all those years to this season, is there a stark difference? Is there something that you look at and say, "Hey, that doesn't look right," or is it just this team's young, this team is this or that? What do you look at with this team?
I think if you're thinking back to like 2019, that lineup just didn't have any holes. I feel like they would just pound people mercilessly 1 through 9, pretty much. Like I remember Harry Ray was, either in the 8 or 9 hole, and he was
Yeah,
hitting doubles left and right, down that generally down the left field line since he was a righty. I mean, so even though he wasn't a great hitter, he was hitting maybe like 270 and hitting for extra bases a good amount, and that's like your probably your least productive hitter in the lineup. So that obviously has just not been the case at all. Like it's tough when you have some holes in your lineup, and ultimately, I don't know. I mean, I think it reminds me a little bit of like those 2015 through I think 17 or 18 teams
hmm
that sort of, I guess it was 2016 through 18 that sort
yeah,
of took a dip. You can have the number one recruiting class every year, but you got to get the evals right. And it's quite possible these guys are certainly. There's been plenty of talk about how the COVID years, that allow other teams to have a really veteran roster and they get guys who've played 5 or 6 years of college baseball. Maybe that makes it tougher for Vandy, but and maybe like Carter Young, for instance, and Parker Noland, just two of them off the top of my head, maybe they could come back next season and have a better year. I wouldn't rule that out, but I would say that those guys haven't developed as hitters, certainly as Vanderbilt would like, or anybody probably would like, including themselves. And that's something that is holding the team back, is that they don't really have balance through the lineup. I don't think. I've heard like talk about Mike Baxter, since he's the hitting coach. Spencer Jones got a lot better, right? Like
yeah,
there's
yeah.
another Enrique Bradfield has been a good hitter, so there are guys who have improved. But I think Vandy missed some evals in recruiting.
Yeah, Robbie, I would agree, and we can get to some of the talent I think gaps right now between Vanderbilt and I don't know about the rest of the SEC, but certainly Tennessee and I mean, you talk about Arkansas. Arkansas's good this year, but they're a 2 seed. So overall, Robbie, kind of an SEC baseball question. Uh, have you been surprised at how quick kind of the lay of the land has changed? It feels like in the last couple years it's taken a step towards we're gonna most of these teams are dipping into the portal. They're dipping into the transfer portal. They are, and the COVID year of course gave everyone an extra boost. I mean, you're seeing players in their 6th year. It feels like 7th years on some teams. So are you surprised at how quick I think baseball in the SEC in particular kind of changed their methods and their ways?
I am, yeah. I had Tennessee ninth, I think, in my preseason SEC
Ooh,
baseball power rankings, and that's about where they were picked in the preseason poll as well. I think
yeah.
they were fourth in the East, I'm pretty sure, and the West is usually a little bit stronger than the East, so ninth is about right there. So I don't think, nobody obviously was expecting them to be like this, but yeah, I thought that they were going to struggle with Blade Tidwell out. And then this gets back to the evals. I think Tony Vitello had some better evals than Vanderbilt, to be honest. Drew Beam is from Murfreesboro. He played for Blackman High School, and he wasn't super highly rated, actually, according to Perfect Game. So I think if you look down that list, certainly Chase Burns is a guy that you could imagine. I would think that Vanderbilt probably wanted, but Drew Beam was more in the range that they don't usually dip into, and yet he has been really good right away. So, I just think Tennessee got that eval right, and everybody else, including Vanderbilt, probably missed on it. So that that certainly plays into things for them. But Texas A&M and LSU are good examples of taking transfers and revamping your team right away. And Vanderbilt hasn't done that a lot, although they've taken Javi Vaz was a JUCO guy, and then Jack Anderson came in as a grad transfer from Princeton. They might want to look at doing the transfer thing a little bit more, I think, because if they could add a couple of veteran, established productive hitters to the lineup for next season, I think they should do it.
It'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see kind of if Tim Corbin, changes any of his methods or anything with the staff and evaluations. Great point there with that. But Robbie, let's get into the regional. You got Oregon State, San Diego, Vanderbilt, and New Mexico State. Vanderbilt, of course, the outlier, making the long trek over from Nashville. When you look at this regional, where does it stack up with some of the other regionals that you think are, say a top 5 regional? Where's this regional in terms of competitiveness from either any team's perspective, whether it's Oregon State or Vanderbilt or San Diego or even New Mexico State?
That's interesting. I hadn't really thought about it in terms of the difficulty overall compared to others. I think the toughest one is whichever one Central Michigan is the 4 seed in. I'm blanking off the top of my head, but then
I forgot which one that
Florida,
one.
Florida,
I think it might be
Oklahoma,
Florida.
and then Liberty. That's a tough one. I think that might be the toughest one. I think this is kind of in the middle, or maybe even a little bit easier than average, honestly, because the 4 seed New Mexico State is just kind of there. Probably Oregon State, definitely a very good team. I think they lost their last series of the regular season, though, and tailed off a little bit late, because when UT lost that series to Kentucky, I remember there was a little bit of talk about maybe Oregon State could jump up to number 1, which to me was strange. But, then they end up getting the number 3 seed. They're not even number 2. So, I think they're certainly the class of this regional, but maybe a little bit less dominant than a few weeks ago. And then Vanderbilt, just hasn't had very much success against high quality top 25 teams. And then San Diego they needed to win the automatic bid to get in, right? I think they're actually a good team. They took 3 out of 4 from Oregon at the very beginning of the season, and Oregon is good. They beat Gonzaga twice in the West Coast Conference tournament, and Gonzaga is a number 2 seed. So San Diego's a quality team, but I don't think that's a stronger than average number 3 seed. And Vanderbilt probably is a pretty average 2, I would think. It's just, as and everybody knows who's watched them, one day they look great and one day it's a disaster. So you just kind of don't know what you're going to get. It's hard to average it out and, decide how good is this team.
Yeah, I'd agree. Robbie, Tim Corbin had a really interesting quote. I think it was right after the selection show when, he usually does the interview, asking about the postseason play. And when the Vandy boys enter the month of June, he said it's completely different. And it doesn't matter what you've done February, March, April, May. This is June. And we've been in June quite a bit. We like June. June has been good to Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt has been good to June. So we just take pride in being able to play. Now, I think, that can be taken out of context and saying, hey, regular season doesn't matter. I don't know that Tim Corbin meant to say that. But when he says it doesn't matter what you've done February through May, do you think he means that? I mean, is there, you think there's truth to that, or do you think that's something that Tim Corbin maybe didn't necessarily want to mean?
I think he's a competitor, a big time competitor. We all know that, even though he doesn't yell and scream at the umps like some of the other coaches do, he is extremely competitive. And I would imagine that, even though he doesn't say it, there probably is a chip on the shoulder right now when a lot of people are writing them off. This is a team that's in a program that's used to competing for national championships. And, I think there's an element of telling yourself that doesn't matter. And, I think February and March, yeah, it doesn't have a lot of bearing on what happens in the postseason. But at the same time, we've seen for 3 months or 4 months or whatever it is now that Vanderbilt, in the opening series, they lost 2 out of 3 to Oklahoma State. And then, the performance was kind of similar throughout the entire season. So I just think that's kind of, that's what they are. Probably they're a good team that generally is not going to beat the best teams. And so, yeah, it's possible that they could flip the switch, but I just don't know. I don't know that they've like what evidence is there for that? We haven't seen, other than that Arkansas series. We think that they go to Arkansas and win this series, and that's such a great series win. We think, the Georgia one was similar. Georgia was a projected number one seed at that point. Well, all of a sudden, it turns out that those teams really slumped late in the season and weren't nearly as good as we thought at the time. So Vanderbilt's a good team. They are 15 games over 500. It's a good team, but to beat Oregon State on the road, you probably got to be a great team or maybe get some lucky breaks. They're very talented, Vanderbilt, as we all know. So maybe they all of a sudden break out and things click. But to my point, I just there's no evidence that that's going to happen.
Robbie, Corbin, he didn't say this directly. He didn't say Carter will go Friday, McElvain will go Saturday, but that leads us to believe the order in which he said it, that Carter Holton will go Friday against San Diego, and then McElvain will pitch on Saturday, whoever they play. In terms of the pitching strategy, obviously it can be tough putting yourself into a coach's shoes in this situation. Of course, anything can happen in terms of, responding to a situation. Who do you throw in? But, say you're Tim Corbin. What are you looking at from a week before the weekend even starts? You got San Diego Friday, and then you still got to think about Saturday, Sunday, maybe a game Monday. What would be your thinking in Tim Corbin's mind?
Yeah, I tried to get that confirmed after that interview that he did on WNSR because I interpreted it the same way that you and everybody else
Hmm.
probably did, that Holden will start on Friday, but he didn't, as you said, explicitly say
Right.
that. I couldn't get it confirmed yet. We'll find out probably
We'll
tomorrow.
see.
Yeah, I think we'll know tomorrow. I see, it's tough because Tim Corbin is a two-time national champion and has access to a lot more information to make this decision than I do. Honestly, I don't have the lefty righty splits for Oregon State and San Diego. And how they hit even against specific pitches. So could there be an advantage with Chris McElvain's pitch mix versus Carter Holton's against a certain team? I don't know in terms of that. What I do know is that Carter Holton has been by far the best pitcher on the team for the last month or month and a half. So from my perspective, I think I don't think they have a realistic chance of beating Oregon State unless Carter Holton goes in that second game against Oregon State.
Hmm.
Other than otherwise you're just playing from behind, and if you win those first two games in the regional, you're in such a commanding position that it
Right.
would be really difficult to win that regional on the road at that point if you can't win that second game against Oregon State. So if you start McElvain against San Diego, yeah, you're taking a little bit of a risk, but at the same time, I think if you burn Holton early, I just don't like their chances if they can't throw Holton against Oregon State, because that is a great offensive team and you're going to need your best to keep them in check. So that I would hold back Holton for that second game. And on top of that, I know that Chris McElvain, his numbers don't look good recently. He's been hung out to dry by the defense. I think he has taken less of a step back late in the year than maybe some have said. Like, I thought that start against Kentucky was fine, to be honest with
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
There's so many defensive mistakes. And so I feel like they should be confident in his ability to go out against San Diego and make a strong start.
Yeah, the defense was awful, and really most of the SEC tournament, and so you
That
really
was the
can't.
worst defensive game I've ever seen Vanderbilt play.
Yeah, I mean, I was there, and kind of just looking around, kind of searching for answers, like, what's going on here, and you just don't expect that, and even the SEC crew. I don't know if you watch any of the post game comments from,
Yeah.
a really good crew at SEC Network, but they said the same stuff. They were just like, this doesn't look like Vanderbilt baseball, and that's all they really said. They weren't going into anything else. They just said. They're going to have to flip a switch. And so that's kind of a consensus. It doesn't look like Vanderbilt baseball. And when they don't play Vanderbilt baseball, Tim Corbin's not happy. And so, there's probably been a kind of recurring theme of, hey, coach isn't happy, but how does this team respond? And, we're going to have to see. But Robbie, I want to ask you about this in particular in terms of keys to victory. We talk about this in football a lot. It might be a little bit tougher for baseball, but for Vanderbilt to win this regional, And throughout, of course, this would be maybe 3, 4 days. But what are a couple things that must happen for Vanderbilt to win this regional?
I think Parker Noland is a big key because I know that his average hasn't been great this year. I don't know what is off the top of my head. I can look like 240 something,
I think
or
it's
actually he's up to
around
260. He's up to
yeah.
260 now. So I mean, he has showed something late in the season, I thought. Um, and I think he's a pretty big key, to be honest with you, because I think you can get away with maybe having Carter Young toward the bottom of the order. I know he hasn't been hitting the ball well either, but he has also shown a little bit of life recently, and he has power. He's a fantastic defensive player, so you live with that. And I think so. I think if you can take away one of the guys who maybe has been sort of at times an automatic out, then that can really help the lineup. And so the idea is that Nolan would go from at times really slumping this season to quality hitter, and he has shown that upside both this season at times and in the past. So that would be one thing that I would look for. The second thing would be probably you got to get a good start out of somebody other than Holton and McIlvain. And I would think that Christian Little is the best candidate to make that happen. You could maybe throw Devin Futrell in there because, I mean, he had a really good start against Louisville. It's not like he has just been constantly getting hit by every good team that he's pitched against. Yeah, I mean, I think if they could get like a great start or even just a good start from Christian Little, that third guy stepping up, that really, really can save your bullpen in a situation in regionals where teams run out of arms. So that's kind of what I'm looking at as two of the biggest factors, because the nightmare scenario for Vanderbilt is you like McIlvain doesn't give you a good start in the second game potentially against Oregon State, and you start running out of arms early, and you may not even at that point make it to the regional final potentially.
Yeah, that's what happened in the SEC tournament. You saw it happen against Tennessee. You saw it happen against Kentucky, where he simply ran out of pitching. And when you don't pitch well, that's when it starts to happen. And Corbin almost, I'm not going to say give up, but I mean he was throwing guys out there that I hadn't seen all year. So if that happens, I think Vanderbilt can kind of kiss chances goodbye of winning the regional. But real quick, Robbie, before we let you go, on Oregon State and San Diego, I know we talked a little bit about San Diego at the top. WCC champs. Oregon State has been top 5, top 10 team all year long. Give us a couple notes on both of those teams and what Vanderbilt fans can kind of look forward to first with the San Diego matchup, and then if they move on for Oregon State, how good are those two teams?
Yeah, I mean, Oregon State's fantastic. San Diego is a good, solid team, but one that I mean, certainly if Carter Holton starts that game, Vanderbilt, I think, would be pretty overwhelming favorites, I would say. Tim Corbin said that he's expecting San Diego to start Bryson Motts, who is he's a lefty and he has a 4.09 ERA. He's a good pitcher, so I mean, but he's not. I mean, Carter Holton's a lot better, right? Holton has been one of the best pitchers in the entire country recently, so I'd give the advantage to Vanderbilt there. Both of these teams are good hitting teams that don't actually hit a lot of home runs, which is sort of different from what we see in the SEC. And I'm really interested to see like whether that helps Vanderbilt or does it hurt Vanderbilt or what, because the hitting conditions aren't going to be great.
Ideal.
No, it's not exactly going to be Nashville like that. The LSU series, it was
Ball
hot.
was flying out of the park.
Yeah, and so it really helps the home run ball if it's hot and if the humidity is high. And I think it's gonna be like 64 degrees in Corvallis, and it could be like there's gonna be rain in the forecast. Whether that causes delays or whatever, I have no idea, or whether it's gonna be misty during the game or something like that. I don't know, but it's not gonna be home run weather, and Vanderbilt gives up a lot of home runs, so I think that could help them, like maybe, but at the same time, they'll hit fewer home runs. So I sort of don't know. That's one of those things where like I don't know that we're gonna know for sure who it helps the most until we like actually watch these games. I suspect it'll be a positive for Vanderbilt because I feel like they've been giving up a lot of home runs. Like Pat Riley, works up high in the zone with the fastball. That could really benefit him if it's not good hitting weather. So I'm just interested to see how that plays out because we haven't seen Vanderbilt play in these conditions in like months, basically.
Yeah, yeah. Robbie, real quick, really appreciate you coming on. One last question: Tennessee or the field?
Um. Well, like statistically, the field is the right answer there. I'm not feeling confident in that. I do think so. I guess I'll take Tennessee. I'm not sure though. What I would say is one team to watch out for is there's a Tennessee Texas Tech Super Regional.
Interesting.
Texas Tech somehow got a number 3 seed. I don't know how that's possible. They could win that. They could win that Super Regional, actually. That's a tough 3-game series, and you need to get into like that. Beating Tennessee in a regional is just too tough because they have so many more arms than everybody else. But if you
Hmm.
get in a best of 3 situation and you potentially only need to win those first 2 games, you have a better shot. So I think that could be like a really tough test for Tennessee. I almost think like if they get to the College World Series, I would feel pretty confident in them winning it. But I think like the Super Regionals is going to be potentially the biggest test of all for them.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see, Robbie. I say the field, but nervously, very, very, very nervously, because you said the numbers are on their side, but I mean this team's ridiculous. This team is absolutely ridiculous. So we'll have to see. But Robbie, really appreciate it, and I would have to guess you're not headed up to Corvallis, are you?
No, no, I'm not. I've got stuff to do here anyway. There's actually the football camps at Vandy start. I think the first one is June 5th. I don't know what day of the week that is. Maybe Sunday. So probably be out at that for recruiting purposes.
The got to stay in Nashville, and that's what Robbie's here for, giving Vanderbilt fans the coverage. And Robbie, thanks again. Thanks for taking the time.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.